Okay. Thank you very much, Sir Al, for the kind introduction. Just a disclaimer. I'll start with a disclaimer. Um, I'm not an expert in um, cultural heritage conservation. I'm just a poor rector of a high school seminary here in Naga City. But I am a historian, though, but I'm specializing in church history. And I happened to be at the crossroads of the typhoon Christine, and therefore uh, that is the probably the only biggest qualification that I have is that I weathered the storm Christine. Okay, so the title of my presentation is, of course, taken from the Saysáyan Lecture Series, and that is Safeguarding History and Cultural Heritage, the Museo del Seminario Conciliar de Nueva Cáceres Experience. So that's the long name of our museum that is found within the Holy Rosary Minor Seminary here in Naga City. Okay, so there will be three major parts for my talk. First one is the emergency response of the Archdiocese for Typhoon Christine. So more or less you'll have a situational, a context wherein you will find how we rescued the artifacts of the museum. And secondly, that is where the main topic, that is the heritage in crisis, the museum's emergency response. So you find the response of the museum within that context of a bigger response, which is the response of the Archdiocese of Cáceres um, to the Typhoon Christine. And we will conclude with some reflections and lessons learned. Again, these are not experts' conclusion. This will always be, this is always subject for validation and, of course, correction from the experts. Okay, so let me start with the emergency response of the Archdiocese, or rather the pastoral emergency response. As you well know, Bicol is constantly visited by typhoons. We experience more or less 10 typhoons in a year, and therefore, more or less, the whole diocese or the whole region is always more or less ready to respond to emergency crisis like this. Therefore, we have the impact of the tropical storm Christine, and we're almost on the first year anniversary of this tropical storm, wherein within 24 hours, 525.5 millimeter of rainfall, poured in. So as they say, that's worth about 2 months or 3 months of rain. And 70% 70% of the population in Naga City alone was recorded. 562 barangays flooded all over Bicol region, 30% submerged in the Naga City land area, and the maximum depth of flood water height was 12 feet. Okay, so more or less you got the scenario, you got the picture, and that was our situation almost a year ago. This is the picture of the cathedral. We have never, at least in my lifetime, I've never seen the cathedral flooded like this. And as they say, that the flood caused by Typhoon Christine has never been seen in 100 years. Okay. And another thing, this is from the Camellia subdivision in Naga City. It's the first time also we've seen um, free parking services courtesy of the Typhoon Christine. And that is to put one car over another car. So imagine, this is in Camellia subdivision, they experienced this flash flood, okay, owing to the fact that the creek in that subdivision was redirected and therefore water seeking its natural path to basically ran through the houses in that subdivision. So here are the pastoral directives of the Archbishop. We were actually basking still in the light of the recent centenary of the coronation of Our Lady of Peña Francia, and therefore we still have this slogan crafted by the bishop, Silyab nin paglaom, gibong pagkamo, or spark of hope through works of charity. So hope is seen through works of charity. Therefore, we see here a faith-based action. Charity first. Before anything else, charity first. That's the motivation of our response. It's charity, it's love. And therefore, the Archbishop uh, grounded it in the Evangelii Gaudium and the Lexit Nos of Pope Francis, wherein we desire a church that risks love on streets. So we are ready to, we are supposed to be ready to dirty our sleeves in order just to help a brother or a sister in need. Okay, so he issued 6 key directives framework to transform the parishes as spaces of hope by accommodating um, refugees from those seeking refuge from the storm. That's, by the way, that has become a normal scenario for all our parishes. So we stack up goods, food, and clothing for um, for all the typhoon victims. And then transparent communication. Since I'm in charge of the social communications of the Archdiocese, I urge all the priests to give a blow-by-blow update how many refugees uh, do they have in their parishes, how many people are in shelter, how many are in need of food. So it's a real-time storytelling, and how much donation also was received because of this. So it's leading to anticipatory action, and then of course we have a team in every parish called the Padre or the Parish Disaster Reaction Team. Uh, so it's constantly activated every time there's the threat of the typhoon. And of course, the first thing that we needed to clean after the flooding were the churches, so that together with the uh, logistical concerns, we needed spiritual nourishment also. That is through the immediate celebration of masses in all the parish churches. Plus, we also pooled resources by coordinating with our different vicariates. So that's the whole scenario. Everyone is working. All the parishes have their own disaster reaction team, and therefore we related to the devotion to Our Lady of Peña Francia because last year September we celebrated the centenary of the coronation of the image. That's why we still have this slogan, Palakupon, Padanayan, at Tamanon. Palakupon is to widen its sharing, Padanayan to sustain, and of course to preserve this devotion. Okay, so it's Marian devotion in action. We were still basking on the light of this milestone in our archdiocese. So here's an example of how we updated the blow by blow report. We called our parishes as spaces of hope. Okay, so parishes, we see parishes being transformed into evacuation centers. Okay, so this is in St. Francis of Parish Assisi in Buhi and Laguna. And also even our own seminaries, we were also directed to open all our seminaries to accommodate those affected by the flood. Now, our seminary is quite an extraordinary seminary in the sense that it's already 240-year-old. Today, this year, we just celebrated its 240th year. since it was established in 17 or it's founded in 1785 by Bishop Juan Antonio Orbigo. And therefore, the seminary itself is already a museum, and the seminary itself is supposed to be a cultural heritage. It's a cultural, a property of cultural importance. And in this seminary, um, we have produced outstanding alumni like the first bishop, Filipino bishop, Bishop Jorge Barling, and of course, as we claim, one of our alumni is the national hero Jose Maria Panganiban, um, and uh, and a lot more of I think 7 of the 15 Bicol martyrs also studied here, and so it's an important cultural hub. It's a congregation. It's a point of congregation for not only for religious purposes but also cultural purposes or heritage purposes. And so inside the seminar you find the museum. And so uh, this is also one of the biggest concerns during the flood. Okay, our own museum. The the Museo del Seminario Conciliar de Nueva Cáceres is situated within the seminary, and it's a repository of a diverse array of artifacts. We have 3 galleries in the museum. We have the archaeological gallery, the art gallery, and the bishop's gallery, and the ecclesiastical gallery. The archaeological gallery houses the artifacts that were that resulted from the diggings of the archaeologists from UCLA. So they have a project called Bicol Archaeological Project, and they have dug into the different in the oldest parishes here like Tamaligan, Bombon, and Kipayo, and other sites like Binanuanan, as they claim, as they hypothesize that it could be the pre-colonial settlement of the original Bicolano or the indigenous people here in Bicol. And therefore, it's very important that we hold special artifacts here like the pottery coffins, which uh, when they carbon dated the skeleton that found in the pottery coffin, it goes back to the 7th century. So we theorize that it's earlier than the European civilization. So we have artifacts like that, and so it's not really easy to see the devastation caused by Typhoon Christine. And of course, the Ecclesiastical Gallery, which is the biggest gallery, we have artifacts coming from the different parishes of the Archdiocese. So this museum was established way back in 1988 when NHI declared that the Holy Rosary Minor Seminary is a National Historical Landmark. It was declared by then NHI, or the National Historical Institute. That's the yeah. Um, and so upon the declaration of the seminary as a National Historical Landmark, it was suggested by the NHI to open a museum also so that it could be an educational experience also for the next following or the following generations. So the museum is usually open and from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So yeah, so that's the reason why we have a museum within the seminary. So here's a glimpse of pun intended for the glimpses, which is the title or the label we placed on the exhibit displayed in the archaeological gallery. So we call this glimpses because um, it's a glimpse. These are short glimpses to the past, to the pre-colonial past of Bicol. As you can see here at the center, you find the cover of the pottery coffin, and on the left side, of course, you find an old altar, the Tridentine altar or the retablo. And on the right side below, you find also the gold earrings found uh, that was worn by the the skeleton was that of an adolescent girl, and so um, the gold itself is indicative of the existence of the trade relation between the indigenous population as well as other population, probably in the Southeast Asian neighbors. And so the discovery of this in the diggings by the Bicol Archaeological Project pushes back the uh, the existence of artifacts in the whole trade relation history. And so we have very important artifacts within the. And so this is the gate of the seminary. Luckily, I was able to escape the flood, all because I was invited to celebrate mass in my former parish at St. Jude Tadeu's Parish. Therefore, I spent overnight in that parish, away from the seminary. If not, my car would have also been would have been declared a total damage. So when I went back in the morning, I took pictures of what I saw. This was our gate, and all the cars of the priests. We have 6 priests in the seminary. They were all flooded and totally damaged. And this is where you find the museum. Uh, it was uh, it was very disheartening to see that we do not know yet what's inside, what happened to all the artifacts. This was the first picture I took. And this is the Sacred Heart Garden where you find in between the two major dormitories on the left side and on the right side. So this is what we found out inside the biggest gallery, which is the ecclesiastical gallery. So it's covered by silt, and this was after the waters receded. It took time for the water to recede. I think that would be after 2 or 3 days, just in our part. But outside the seminary, you find the Barangay Santa Cruz. It was all submerged in still in water. So you have here all the old artifacts that goes back to 17th and 18th century. Okay. So, what was our response to this crisis? Okay, so these are the pictures of our summer seminaries. The first phase of our response is to take care of the community first. So I think everyone would agree that in every disaster risk response plan, the first thing that you should address are the people, your community, the members of your community. We know that artifacts are important, but then again, human life is more important than artifacts. So, yan, you find there kung paano kami nanghiram ng bigas sa cathedral, humingi ng bigas, and then of course our water was out, including electricity. So that continued for more than a week. And yeah, manual water removal with buckets. So the problem with this, while our kids were very industrious and very helpful, but they have also their own limitations. Itong mga batang to, after 30 minutes, naglalaro na. uh, so we invited all their parents to help us, and this is more or less the structure that we followed. So initial response to secure everyone was okay, and then we took photos. We also have a disaster uh, we have also a disaster risk management team in our seminary. We have appointed priests to lead the documentation uh, in, the, in all the usual structure that you have. While outside the seminar, you find here also, um, fiberglass boats needed to deliver the goods. And we also have here on the right side a picture of the Archbishop and Director of the Cathedral visiting us, trying to check if everyone was okay. So luckily, no one was harmed. Everyone was safe. Okay, here comes the second phase, salvage and prioritization. So we have to recall the fact that you cannot save everything at the same time. So you have to prioritize. So you see here, uh, that's me. And we have, I have to go through page by page in all these documents. Okay, we have school records here, um, and then we have books as early, that goes back to the 17th century, and we have publications like this. So the first thing that we did is to conduct on-site damage. So we have to document everything. We have to take pictures. I took picture of all the things that were damaged, and we have to assess the risks. What were the risks involved? Number one, if there are uh, broken glasses. Number two, if the molds are growing now by this time, and if there are any other insects or microorganisms that could harm us. So we have to wear protective clothing. Uh, yeah, you can, if you can only smell the smell of paper that is wet and at the same time the molds growing on them, so you will not be able to sleep very well at night. Okay, so we had to, after on-site, sorry, after segregation and prioritization, so we have to segregate. So this one, for example, are the school grades. So these are school records. And then on the other side, that would be part of the archives of the seminary. Here we also find here the books or the liturgical books. So we have to segregate, but at the same time, we have to to take a photo first of what you found as they are. And then we started calling for help, SOS. The seminarians had to go home because they're still minors. So we are left to our own to our own selves, all the priests. So we have to call for help. The first impressive help that we got was from the University of Nueva Cáceres, most especially the College of Architecture and Engineering. So they sent their volunteers, and you see here, uh, they are all being oriented by their former program director, architect Ara Gamalinda, and yeah, luckily she has an experience. She studied conservation in UST, and here are some of the students that volunteered, luckily, to help us. Okay, so they had an orientation, they had personal safety gear, and so creation of teams. We have group one, group two, group three, corresponding to the different galleries. Gallery one is covered by group one, gallery two, etc. So that's it, and we had to establish protocols, knowing for a fact that anyone could induce further damage to our to the artifacts. So we had to establish a certain protocol. So these are the protocols. Do not remove anything from the area or location. Do not throw anything. Wear protective gear at all times. Throw tissues, masks, gloves in the trash bag and avoid mess in the area. And do not put anything on top of the items as it may cause more damage. And of course, let go. Okay. Ask if you are not sure, most importantly. And we have to document everything. So here on the left side, you find the index or the record summary of all the items that we had to dry up. Okay, so we have an access number. Uh, that means G1027 would mean gallery one, and then the number 27 artifact. Okay, and then there's also a what do you call, sticky note uh, describing the condition. Molds removed in November 6, 2024. Powdered. So we use talcum powder because they say that could help in the absorption of moisture, and therefore the action would be to brush off powder after this because it cannot continue to stay there in the paper because it can also contribute to damage. And yeah, salvage and stabilization. So what did we do with the papers that whose pages are stuck together? So we have to wet them once again, and page by page, we have to really uh, see to it that they are disentangled and we have to brush off the mud also. So after it has to, you can put several containers with water, so from one container to another. But of course, these are delicate papers, and therefore, our observation is that the paper condition of old books were better than the new books. Okay, those printed by the modern printing machines, because the old books have thick paper, so they could easily be disentangled. Okay, they could be restored to its original status. So we also have chalices here. So we have to clean them one by one and then remove the mud, etc. The problem with flood, even though there's no wind at all, the problem with flood is that it can dislodge anything that stood in its way. So, like for example, uh, uh, this yeah, this one, the one that they're carrying, uh, one of the panels. So natutumba siya, and therefore everything inside will get wet, even though it's raised. Uh, it's uh, it's raised from the ground, but then pag natumba na, wala na. Okay. So you have to air dry, continuous natural airflow by using revolving fan. No sun drying because abrupt drying in solar heat makes the pages brittle. So where did we get all these skills in salvaging and stabilizing the artifacts? So once in a while we call people who are experts like NHCP. We were able to contact them and we were advised how to do it. And of course, some of the professors of architect Namalinda, at the same time, um, YouTube University could help us also in this aspect. Okay, so another intervention that we did is the interleaving. So that means for every page you can put a non-acidic paper if it's available, but if it's not, we use paper towels, kitchen paper towels, interleaving. So not page by page, but you interleave it. So it helps in absorbing the water, and after that we hang dry this tissue paper, and then we can reuse them once again to minimize the cost. Okay, so that's one. So these are the pictures of our volunteers helping us. So yeah, it's like a laboratory. So this used to be where we eat and the teachers eat, and then the art gallery of the bishop. So good thing the water did not reach this level. Okay, for the partially wet, we use talcum powder, so that also helped in absorbing moisture, so like this. But you have to brush it off one by one too. So therefore, adding, of course, to the labor and to the work. Luckily, we have somebody from UST to help us, um, and the different volunteers. The funny thing is that the volunteers have their own stories because since this is a very old institution, there was one volunteer who discovered the grades of her father because her father studied in the seminary, and so lo and behold, one of the papers that she was like drying up and helping to stabilize was the uh, scholarly records of his father. And sabi niya, mahina pala kayo sa mathematics na. So ni-report niya kaagad sa tatay niya. So, yeah, the response of the volunteers were really overwhelming. So the removal of molds, that's the biggest hurdle that we had to overcome. And we had to develop a spray solution, one part water, one part ethanol. So that ethanol is used in paper conservation as a sanitizing agent and primarily to combat fungal growth. So there's an option to freeze them, but we do not have the big freezers. And we have to scrape the molds gently and carefully. So these are some of the books that we were cleaning. So I learned how to, we were also advised to use albatross to sort of sanitizing and after um, um, you have to quarantine the books so that microorganisms uh, should be killed first because that's very dangerous also for the volunteers. So we put them in a big container box and then we crush the albatross, put them in containers like this with ethanol so that and when we cover them so that it acts as a as a sort of um, sanitizing the collection. And for those completely dry and clean, we have to put them once again in plastic bags, Ziplocs, so that if there is another flood or is there is another uh, uh, emergency crisis, then they would be saved from here on. So that's what we did from salvaging to prioritization, etc. And of course, the training of volunteers. Phase 3. This is the phase 3. Now we have to shout out to the whole community and ask for support because we could not do that. We have more or less 500 plus um, paper artifacts, only the books and only the manuscripts. Okay, not counting yet the other artifacts. So made what we did was to make a social media appeal and therefore also calling up NHCP for support as well as of course our relationship with the community that greatly helped us. So these three things, they mean a lot to us. So I started posting on the Facebook page of the Archdiocese the before and after picture. So I call that the series of posts as Museo Rehab. So you see here we hired cleaners to um, to clean the mess, and then showing to the public what happened before and after. Okay, I also appealed in the social media to help us. Anyone could help, and one of course vlogger took notice of our appeal, and that was Mighty Magulang. So she suggested that our record should be digitized. So it's high time for us to digitize. So that would be the long-term intervention. Okay. So, and then this was overwhelming. Suddenly, volunteers from all over the Philippines were emailing us and they expressed their desire to help us to volunteer because they saw the need to conserve our heritage collection. So this one is from Quezon City and then as far as Iloilo, etc. So consolidation and conservation. So we have here a picture of Dr. Chas Navarro. Um, I chanced upon him, and so he got interested with us. He even volunteered his team to rescue the artifacts, and he taught us the process of sanitizing the artifacts, quarantining them. So, and he also made it a point to visit us. So here he visited the museum and got the chance to survey the whole situation. And another thing is, yeah, phase 5 here at place review, rebuild, and prevent. So I had to school myself in conservation, and therefore I attended the NHCP Archivists Convention or conference in Pangasinan. So that's where I met once again the head of NHCP, Sir Ricky Jose, and we we were we were featured in that conference in that national convention. Okay, so here we learned how to once again treat papers that were damaged. So we have here Father Gaspar Segaya of the UST. He also invited me in UST to present the same presentation, how we responded to the crisis. And that's it. And the Museum Foundation also sent an email expressing their willingness to help us. So, and so they provided us with a scanner so that we could digitize our collection. Slowly we are scanning and digitizing our collection. So these are some of the pictures we have here. We had some training of our teachers, and here are students also engaged in the scanning process. Okay. And we also had one donor who provided us with uh, the dehumidifier. And this is where we quarantine the documents together with that albatross and ethanol alcohol. So we have here the whole journey of the response that we had in addressing the crisis in our museum and in the heritage collection. So from amateurs, we became more or less knowledgeable on how to protect and to conserve all the heritage treasures that are in our possession. Okay, so these are some of the insights and learnings that we gained to conclude our presentation. So parishes became hubs of community care. Okay, so parishes are not simply for religious purposes here in Bicol. They are actually de facto um, uh, the places of refuge or the how do you call that, barangay, uh, whatever. So at the same time, it is a shared mission. Protecting cultural heritage is a shared mission. And so we were told during the National Convention for the Archivists that bawal masungit ang mga archivists. Otherwise, kung masungit ka, then walang tutulong sa'yo. So that's the reminder of Sir Ricky Jose. And therefore, any institution of conservation or heritage care should be well connected with the community that surrounds it, the different communities. So it's a shared mission, not only by those people that are living inside the seminary or the museum, but all the community. And we bridge generations. And as I gave an example of a daughter, a teacher, sir, serendipitously discovering the school records of his father. And most importantly, we have to prioritize people. So in every emergency situation, we have to take care first of our people. So I recall the great Father Gustavo Gutierrez, the great liberation theologian, said that poverty of the poor is not a call to generous relief or action, but a demand that we go and build a different social order. So a relief operation, um, I hope they do not create, although they are very much good, I mean, they're good in itself, but sometimes repeated relief action could create also a mendicant mentality. So why not address uh, the root cause of the crisis? Why not address the root cause of poverty, for example? So in the same manner, if we transport that to heritage conservation, so we have to really plan out ahead of time and to address the problem. Okay, so memory is not nostalgia; it is the foundation of the future. So recommendation one is to create a diocesan emergency heritage protocol. Not only for the seminary, but for the whole diocese. We need to create a protocol. So, ngayon medyo mahina pa ang protocol namin, but we have to document everything. We have to put them into writing. We have to train personnel. We have to invest in training people. Otherwise, putsu-putsu or sabi-sabi lang, delikado yun. So design systems, how we could flood-proof our institutions, our schools, and our museums or our archives. Empower also the youth because the collections in the museum will always be transgenerational. So as early as today, they can become digital leaders, they can undergo hands-on training, and most importantly, they could handle very well the communications. Okay, so strengthen church communities partnership. Okay, collaboration is a 21st century skill, as we all know, and therefore the church is not exempted from that. Museums and archives are not exempted from that, and therefore you have to build this community partnership. And number four, invest in communication for heritage. Advertise whatever you have, and create a narrative for that, so that it could also enrich people. The mere fact that we're at the fact that we're safekeeping them is not for us simply to uh, uh, to protect them, but also to share them to others. Okay, so from survival, we went through the journey to transformation. We had to educate ourselves, and therefore we had to create a disaster protocol, etc. So for now, the long-term plan is to build a new museum, and therefore either on this site or on this site. And uh, uh, I think people have manifested their interest in creating a new museum where it could be really flood proof. Okay, so our greatest heritage, just to end, is not just in relics or records, but in the faith community um, that breathes life into them. So we value community. We value community. So we help one another, and that builds up community. Thank you very much for your patience and for your generous support and time. Thank you.